Sure.
All right. Hey, everybody. We're going to kick off here real quick. So I'm going to introduce Julie here, and I'll let her do her thing. So Julie Rhodes of Not Your Hobby Marketing Solutions. With over 2 decades of experience in the food and beverage industry, Julie Rhodes is an authority on off-site beverage sales, digital marketing, leadership, team management, and distributor partnership management. She is the owner of Not Your Hobby Marketing Solutions, an educational services and strategic business consulting company built specifically for small to medium-sized craft beverage companies, where she teaches owners and operators how to work smarter, not harder. In addition to being an educator and strategic advisor, she is also a beverage business journalist, active public speaker, is Cicerone certified, served on the national board of the Pink Food Society, and is a member of the North American Guild of Beer Writers, the American Cider Association, Women of the Vine and Spirits, and multiple state brewery guilds. You are very busy.
You don't have to read all that if you don't want to.
We're doing it. She is a mentor for the Brewers Association, also sits on the BA DEI Marketing and Communications Subcommittee. Julie is one of the founding members of the Safe Bars Act Initiative and the Safer Workspaces Initiative. When not working, you can find her spending time with her husband and 2 boys in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, or watching sci-fi movies. Julie, I'll let you take them here. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. That was a very thorough reading of my short bio. Thank you. When people ask me to send those in, I'm like, I wonder if somebody's going to read this verbatim or if they're just going to paraphrase it. Right. Hi, nice to meet you all. Thanks for coming to this thrilling management session. I'm proud of you all for being here instead of talking about yeast or other things, which I know is a lot sexier than what I deal with. Audra said it best yesterday in her financial crystal ball session. If you were in there, we deal with a lot of the not glamorous factors of this industry, but oh so very essential. Did anybody go to the communication and collaboration session yesterday between owners and brewers?
Yeah.
Did you? Hey, you're in for a good one today, because there's going to be some carryover from that. I was actually hoping that a lot of people that were in that session came today so that we could talk about some solutions of some problems that were mentioned in that session, which should be interesting to get into. Again, my name's Julie. I'm from Colorado. I'm not from New York, so hi. It's warm here compared to where I'm from right now. But this has been an absolute blast. I'm a newly inducted allied trade partner in your guild, so thank you for having me. Everything has been kick-ass so far. Honestly, y'all are a lot more fun. I was telling Jeff, like, it's been more entertaining than most conferences that I've been to. So hopefully everyone's had a breakfast beer and you're ready to go. Yes? All right. Let's get into things. This is a joke. I know you can't read this. If you want the slide deck, you can read it. But it's basically everything that Jeff just said about myself. So here's a question platform. So if you don't want to raise your hand, I do this pretty often. You can ask a question anonymously. There are no stupid questions, but some people feel like their questions are stupid. So if you feel that way, feel free to scan this. This is also going to appear on every slide as I go through this, so don't feel like in a rush to take the picture, but I'm going to check it out on my phone. At the end, I'll have a collection of questions on there. If you feel like asking something, please feel free to. The other thing is I'm not super rigid. Obviously, I have kind of a potty mouth. I don't need a mic. I'm long-winded. I'm kind of loud. So I deal with client partners in the space of outside sales, just to make that differentiation, not retail. I'm not a taproom expert. I deal with wholesale. Wholesale sales management, that's a mouthful, but dealing with selling outside of your sales room or taproom, training your sales teams. I act as like a virtual sales director for a lot of my brewery clients that are not quite ready to take on a sales director. I function in the space of digital marketing consulting as well. And distribution management. I am not a lawyer. Don't ask me about contracts, but you can't ask me about red flags. The reason that I'm telling you all this jargon is because if you don't have a question about what we're going to talk about today, I am not going to be mad if you hit me with other questions about other stuff at the end of the session. So feel free to fire away. First of all, let's talk about what this actually means. Managing your team with a scorecard system. A scorecard system to manage your team is basically pay by performance, right? Or sometimes you get fancy corporate acronyms of PFP, whatever, same thing. If you want to call it an incentive, a bonus, a spiff, a kicker, or what, there's like 10,000 terms for this stuff, right? The thing is that what this system is based around is that, and I'm not going to get into numbers about annual salary or base pay or any of that stuff today, but whoever is working for you, with you, they have some kind of base compensation package, and what you're doing is building out a program to incentivize them to be invested in the organization. I believe in companies that are run like ecosystems and not like an organizational chart. I prefer lateral management. I also prefer open book management. Not a finance gal either, so please don't ask me finance questions. But I do, a lot of the consulting that I do carries over into the finance world, which is why I deal with a lot of infrastructure stuff, especially with working with sales teams. It's hard to figure out, like, what should I be paying them? When should I take one on? All that kind of stuff. This is where this started for me, was trying to figure out a better way to compensate outside sales reps. What I figured out very quickly is that it can carry over into many departments within your organization. So we're going to go through that. First, we're going to talk about like what it is, why you should use a scorecard system, who is it right for, some prep work that you would need to do to set some up for your own business. We're going to talk about how to actually set one up. I'm going to give you a template. At the end, I'm going to give you, I hate to hit you with all the QR codes, but there's another QR code at the end where you can instantly access my like deliverable folder. It's got a copy of my slide deck. It's got the templates that I'm going to run you through today. Y'all can have those. Please don't overwrite them. Please make a copy and save it as your own so I don't have to redo my templates. That would be really nice. Also, we're going to talk about what it looks like to use this in real time and then how you can analyze it to improve your business and your team members as well. All right. So, I'm going through my notes here. What and why for a scorecard? It's basically an organized way to run the infrastructure of your organization, right? So instead of saying, hey, sales rep, you get a base salary plus a percentage commission. What does that do? All right, well, it doesn't exactly build like great habits, right? Please forgive me because I use a sales rep capacity because I did supplier side sales for over 12 years. That's where I have the most experience, but I have done this with like marketing, in-house marketing people. We've done it with production folks. We've done it with drivers, pretty much across the board, any department within an organization. In this case in point, like with a sales rep, instead of just saying, I'm going to give you a base salary plus like 3% commission on sales, what that does is that person is working like willy-nilly all over the place, right? Just to retain like 3% of whatever they're bringing in. Why is that a bad thing? Because they can develop some really bad habits that in the long run are not going to be good for you and your company. What we're trying to do is develop people, not just tell them what to do and then kick them out the door and hope that they do their best, right? You want to grow people within your organization. Turnover is super effing expensive. I don't like turnover. I hate turnover. When you invest in your team, you can avoid turnover. That's what this system is kind of meant to do, right? So we build up systems that are things like, okay, we take out percent commission on sales, right? And we replace it with, say, like 3 to 5 elements that directly correlate to that person's position, right? So number of account visits, number of promotions that they're doing in the market, displays that they're setting up, activations with retail partners, if they're sending out marketing materials, if they're working with distributor reps in the market, things like that that are elements of their job role, right? So they should be compensated for the things that they're doing. If you're drinking, take a drink, because I'm going to say COVID right now. COVID taught us the lesson of, guy in the back, listen. Okay. But we learned that lesson, right? If you're only paying 3% commission on volume and COVID hits, you don't have shit. They're just making their base salary, which sometimes is not a great living wage if you aren't paying attention to what your state minimums are and you know what that person's situation is. So you want to have other elements in there. Just because there's a global pandemic doesn't mean they're not working. So if you're paying them for things that are part of their role, then you're compensating them for the work that they're putting in and not just the results that they're getting. Make sense? You want to compensate for results, but you also want to compensate for activities, basically. So what it is when it comes to metrics too, these are a lot of ways that you can do forward-facing metrics and not historical. Yes, you're going to pay them on historical, like they did this last month, right? And that's what they accomplished. That's what they're getting. But throughout that month, if you're tracking it week to week, which I suggest that people do, if you're paying out per quarter, you're tracking it month to month, right? Like a smaller increment. They can do something about that along the way. They aren't just like screwed at the end, right? Like they can get better. It's like a tiny performance improvement plan that's like built into the system already, so that you can say to that person, like say it's quarter one and you're paying out per quarter. Say I get halfway through February and I come to my sales rep and I say, your placement count is down, your number of buying accounts is down, and you've only done half the number of account visits that you should. That kind of blows. We don't want that to happen, right? We have goals in there for a reason, but this is your chance to make it up. You got a month and a half left before the hammer drops, right? Before we pay out for that. So get on it. Get out there and do stuff. It can also be a motivator, depending on what you're giving. This also doesn't have to be financial, just so you know. We talked about incenting people in the session the other day. Ask your employees what they want. Not everyone is motivated by money. I use the example of myself when I was out in the field, and this is years ago. I was pregnant. I was that pregnant beer sales rep, by the way. What did I want? I wanted a Costco membership. I was gonna buy like a shitload of diapers, right? Like, of course I would. Like, I wanted something that was gonna benefit my family. I also wanted extra PTO. I'm a big fan of paid maternity leave, by the way, if you can't tell. I wanted extra PTO because I knew I needed time off. So instead of taking a financial bonus or a financial cut, I traded some of my commission that I was gonna get, and I traded out for a wholesale club membership and more PTO. Simple as that. All you have to do is ask. People are motivated by different things. Sometimes people have a partner that's like the breadwinner, and they're like, I just do this because I love it. I'm not really motivated by money. I want more time with my family, or I need a gym membership. You know, whatever it is, just ask them, right? And then you can incorporate it into a system like this. This is also going to measure the pulse of the business. The point of having different scorecards across different departments within the organization is that you can keep a pulse, you keep your finger on the pulse of the business. Okay, production is at this level, front of the house is at this level, sales reps are doing this, marketing department is doing this. And please know when I say departments, that might be you. It could be you and like, of course I get a phone call right in the middle of my presentation. It could be you and like 2 other people. You can implement this across the board with a very small team. This doesn't have to be a big organization for you to take advantage of a scorecard system. The other thing that this does is removes bias. I actually, there was an article that came through my social feeds this morning about how owners need to be more transparent about promotions. We need to talk about salaries. We need to talk about money. This is another element why I'm a big fan of open book management, right? When you hire somebody, you're getting this much. And Jeff knows how much I'm making, and I know how much Jeff is making, right? And also, you can blanket things. If Jeff wants to make more, I have it published somewhere that he needs to do X to make X. I want a cost of living raise, I'm gonna have to hit these KPIs, key performance indicators, that are benefiting your business, right? Or I'm the brewer, I'm gonna try to reach this like barrelage level, right? Before I like incentivize myself with like an extra bonus. And when everybody can see that, it's not a cutthroat, stab each other in the back, like secret talking about things situation, you can all kind of work together. You don't have to open all of your financial books. but I am a big fan of removing that bias piece of saying, well, Jeff got a raise, like why didn't I get a raise? Or Morgan's making more per hour than Susie is over here, and why is that the case? So we're removing bias out of the system at the same time. And clarity. You know what the hell's going on with your business, which is a really nice thing to have. All right, so let's talk about who this is for, or the different departments. First, sales. This works very well. Raise your hand if you have a sales rep or a sales team. There's probably a handful of people in here. Yeah, keep your hand up if you have more than one sales rep. Yeah? Working with distributors? You just keep your hand up. We'll just go through the punch list. Okay, so a lot of this is going to apply to you. It's like, what do I pay my sales rep? I'm going to run you through an example of that, but you'll see why it's so effective. Just build it off of what you want your sales team to do. That's literally it. That's all it is. It's also on a spreadsheet, which makes it fancy. Then you can also do it for your marketing department. Now, marketing is hard, right? We all know that. Morgan's probably the only person in the room right now that is a marketing professional. Anybody else do marketing solely in here? Yeah. Don't take it. Anyways, there's a lot of gray areas, right? Like like, how do you know that somebody came into your tap room and spent money there because they saw a Facebook post? You don't know that unless you ask them specifically, and you ask every person when they come in, which is super awkward and not an efficient way to track that, right? Come to our talk later today. We're going to talk about micro conversions and why that's so important in marketing. It's the things that you can't see. It's the indirect ties that are affecting your business, affecting your income and your revenue streams, right? So there's ways that you can incentivize and put a scorecard on your marketing department, even though it doesn't track conversions like that. You can do things like, how many email subscribers do I have? Is my social media following growing? My engagement score, are all of those things increasing? Are my click rates going up? My open rates going up? There's all different things that you can assign to the marketing department. And I've got stuff for production folks. Don't feel bad. I don't speak production. That's my husband's department. He's in the industry too. But I've tried my best to learn as much as I can. So like waste, spillage, bad batches, DO levels, total barrelage, cost on batches, stuff like that. Hopefully y'all can see how that would translate into a scorecard system, as well as different KPIs that you could track. You can do this with front of the house. Did they open the right way? Did they close the right way? How many people did they get signed up for your email marketing newsletter when they closed out their check? How much merch did they sell? How much beer to go did they sell? You want to talk about good margins? Start asking your front of the house people, tap room, own premise, whatever you call it, retail. Start having your staff ask if they want beer to go and if they want merch. It's going to make a huge difference. I said I'm not a tap room expert, but I can tell you that much. Just start doing that with everybody. Finance and admin, hopefully that's easy to see. Like, did accounts payable get done? How are we doing with AR? Did payroll get done on time? Different things like that, depending on how big your business is. But what you're trying to get at is 15 is a little extreme. If you're a big organization, I've used scorecards with up to like 10 to 15 elements. If you're small, please go on the latter side of that. I have 5 in here because that's a nice round, sort of even number that you can start with as baby steps, but know that you can even go as small as 1 or 2 things if you're just getting started. Like, start small, don't make it hard on yourself, progress over perfection at this point. This is an example of one. I know that's kind of small. Hopefully y'all can see that as best as you can. This is my freebie Google sheet of like how to set up a scorecard, right? So I have a sales rep, who it is, put their name on there. Don't just put random sales rep. But we have decided on our measurables, which are our key performance indicators for the sales team, the things that are most important for us that feed into our annual sales goals for the year. You should have sales goals for the year. You should have marketing goals for the year. You should have taproom revenue goals for the year. You should have overall revenue goals for your entire business for the whole year. If you don't, run out the door today and set those in place and communicate them with your team. Because otherwise people, it's just like, let's make more beer. Let's sell more beer. Cool. How do we get there? Nobody freaking knows. Let's set some marks. Do you think of it like GPS? This is where we were at point A last year. This is where I want to be at point B. All the strategy in between is like your like turn by turn, right? It's giving you turn by turn directions to get to that next level. More barrelage, more revenue, more higher profit margin, whatever you come up with that fits your brand. I can't tell you what to do or give you a benchmark for any of those because every brand in here is different. You all have different goals that are unique to your own brand. You can't copy what somebody else is doing. You can get inspired by what other people are doing that are similar, close competitors, but you should be setting your own goals based on your own numbers and what's going on internally. So these handful of elements are going to be what helps this brewery with their sales team the most. We have a yearly revenue goal, right? So we're looking at monthly revenue as far as scorecard elements go. And the goal for them, because we're setting ambitious revenue goals, by the way, that are a little bit further than what we actually would be happy with, because you want to stick it, like, unless you're focused on breaking even. Anybody in here focused on just like making the same thing you did last year? Just checking. Also checking to make sure you aren't falling asleep talking about management principles as well. So we want to set ambitious goals, but my reps, I don't expect them to get to 100% of the goal. I just want them to get to 80%. Average, like for the quarter or for the month, whatever it is. Maybe it's 85%. Maybe it's 90%. Don't ever set it at 100. We don't want to set people up to fail. We want it to be challenging, but we don't want to discourage them from trying to reach the goal. So it's this delicate balance between like overshooting to grow the business, but then also making it attainable. Do I have to explain SMART goals? Does everybody know what a SMART goal is? Hopefully. Okay, set SMART goals. That's all I'm in. So we've also got a POD monthly goal, points of distribution. So a buying account is like one entity, right? If I have Julie's liquor store, I am one buying account. If you live in the VIP or Encompass universe, that's one customer account or that's one did buy. I know it's a lot of different verbiage, so I like to go between all the systems. Points of distribution is different. That's the depth into that one account, right? We call it pods for short. So if you hear me say pods, that's what I'm referring to. And that is, if you're selling me 5 items, that's 5 pods. But I'm just one licensee, right? So I'm one buying account, but I have 5 points of distribution. You heard what Bart said this morning about incremental gains. Like pull a Ted Lasso and just like put it on a damn banner and hang it above your door so that everybody can come in for the next 2 years until 2025. It is going to be all about incremental gains. Everyone laughed at me a couple years ago when I said on-premise was not going to recover until 2024. My clients were like giving me the finger under the table. They were like, Julie, what? You can't say that to us. Yeah, I can. Look what's happening, right? Stop talking about 2019, never going back there. It's dead, just put a fork in it, like we're totally done. Marketplace is totally different, but that doesn't mean we don't have opportunities to grow. There are, you just have to find them. And a lot of it is gonna come in terms of incremental gains, incremental pods. How many pods can you add to your lineup? I don't care if that person is a mom and pop liquor store that's only doing 1 case a month. You add up 100 of those, you have 100 cases that you didn't have yesterday. Don't discount the small folks in a tough market, right? Pods are a great way to focus on that. Monthly account visits. Am I trying to micromanage you? Hell no. I don't have time to micromanage a sales rep, right? What I'm trying to avoid is low quality visits, right? So usually when you get somebody new for sales, I look at the quantity of account visits they do, and when they've proven themselves as somebody that I can trust, I move to quality and I take that off of there. The only reason I'm giving you a quota at the beginning is because you work remotely, and I just want to make sure that you're out there doing what you need to be doing on behalf of the company. But eventually, I'm going to bridge you into something where if you have to spend 2 hours at lunchtime I used to sell European imports, by the way, and if anybody's ever dealt with a German retail buyer, you know that you have to sit down, you have to eat schnitzel with them, you have to stick around for coffee and strudel, and you sit, and I knew that I was going to be in that account for 3 hours minimum. But if you're buying 20 half barrels from me every month, that's totally worth it. That's a whole different ballgame, right? So once your rep or whoever it is, your marketing person, okay, I'm sending out emails when I'm supposed to be. You can take some of that stuff out. But start with this, see where it goes, reassess, and then you can change it as you go along. I don't like to change a lot of these elements midstream, like throughout the year, but if you find that you've got somebody that's doing a bang-up job and you want to change it at the end of the quarter, change it at the end of the quarter. If your goals are unattainable, change it at the end of the quarter. Don't keep doing the same thing that's not working. That's going to be awful, and your person is going to lose all their morale and motivation, right? Just don't go changing it every month. That's all I'm trying to say. Don't do it all the time. Those are just different things that we've used as examples, like promotions, displays. If we've had like a certain SKU focus, like if you have something that's dragging, maybe like a big profit margin leader in your portfolio that's been kind of low key and you want to put attention towards that, you can do stuff that's item focused as well. All right, so this is kind of some of the prep work that you're going to need to be doing. See, I'm long-winded. I'm going to have to look at the time. All right. First of all, you need to set goals. I kind of jumped ahead of myself here. Start with annual, work your way backwards, right? Go big annual goals, each department, revenue, volume, barrelage, loss in the tap room, whatever it is, right? And then work your way backwards. Go to quarterly, and then get down to where you're doing monthly. I would love for it to be monthly, but again, progress over perfection. If you want to start with quarterly, that's fine. Work your way up to monthly eventually. The second thing is you do need to have an organizational chart so that you know who is collecting the data. That's literally, it's not because I want you to have a hierarchy. It can look like a mind map with like a circle. I don't care who, but you need to have somebody that's designated to collect the data and report it, so that whoever is doing your financials has data to go off of, and it needs to be somebody that you can rely on to do it on a consistent basis. The other thing is clear roles. I believe this also came up in your panel about expectations. That lovely woman that was sitting like halfway through, she was like, when you set expectations with everybody, it is so much easier to manage people. Just put it out on a platter. What do you expect them to do? For sales reps, I expect you to do account visits every week. I expect you to do a mileage report. I expect you to do an expense report. I expect you to do a ride with your distributor each week. I expect you to visit 25% of your key accounts on a weekly basis. I expect you to do one event per week. Yes, you need to go that granular. Just carry it over to your other departments as well, right? Put all the expectations out there so that you don't have to go back through and slack and like yell at somebody, right? Because when we all start talking to each other and we get everything out on the, even if it's awkward, who cares? Be adults, right? Ask them to do stuff. Even if it's awkward. The more awkward conversations that have, the more we grow as organizations, the better unity you guys are going to have within your own businesses, right? Pay structure. Let them know how they're getting paid. Let them know the elements of the scorecard and how they're getting paid out on each thing. Tracking duties, assign that to somebody. Tracking tools. Ugh, this is like a big one, right? Obviously, I'm going to say software. Who's using VIP? Okay, you have like the fancy digs, right? It's going to be super easy. Encompass, anybody on Encompass? Oh wow, this is like the first time I've talked to a room full of people and nobody had Encompass. Anyone using one of those shifty ones like Diver or Margin Minder or some like weird offshoot? Okay, anyways. Ecos, Beer 30, Brew Ninja, any of those things? Yeah. You can do this with as little as QuickBooks. or 0, right? You export a spreadsheet, if I would say one tip to take away from here, and get on YouTube, do a keyword search for pivot tables. Learn how to use a pivot table in a spreadsheet. I don't care if you're using Excel, Google Sheets, numbers, whatever it is, right? Learn how to use a pivot table. It will save your life. When it comes to batch planning, costing, financial accounting methods, sales data, all that stuff. Learn how to use a pivot table. And I'll be here next year and you can say thank you, Julie, for telling me to use how to. What it does is it aggregates massive amounts of ugly data for you into sortable measures, right? You get a new spreadsheet that will pop up, you get a little menu, and it'll ask you how you want to see that nasty data that you had from the beginning. I love a good CSV export, which is nuts. I love it because it has no formatting, because I can put it in a pivot table and I can get out the stuff that I need to see, which is the KPIs that I need to run my scorecard system. All right, let's talk about actually building a scorecard. First, you need to pick your categories. Like I said, number of categories is not that important. Just don't overdo it. Don't overcomplicate it, because then it'll just get messy. But you want to look at your big overall annual goals and then pull out KPIs or smaller elements of that would contribute to your overall goal. Does that make sense to everybody? You just want to pull out smaller derivatives, right? So these are the things that I'm going to chunk in my funnel so that it can all go to this big number that I'm trying to get to. And figure out what's most important. If you have to do like a big old brain dump at the beginning and then whittle it down, that's totally fine. Start that way. I do that a lot because that's how my brain works, but not everybody works that way. Then you want to create a spreadsheet, like the example I showed you earlier. Very easy, like somebody's name, what the elements are, where you're trying to get them to, and then a way that you can track it over time. Identify your time frames. Like I said, I like to do by month. You don't have to do it that way. You could start by quarter. You could even start by like half a year if you wanted to. If you do like H1 and H2, that's totally fine if you want to start that broad. Some people that I work with do it by week, which is insanity, but totally acceptable. Next, you want to share it with your team. Talk to them about it. It's the same way that I've also heard folks, that distribution panel that was a hoot yesterday. I don't know if anybody else was in there. It was super fun. They talked about getting feedback from your sales team, and I think it happened in your session as well, about I'm a brewer and I want to make what I want to, right? But can the sales team sell it? There's a difference between making what you want to make and making what people want to buy. I always tell people this: you can make a kitchen sink beer in your tap room all day. Awesome. Knock yourself out, right? When it goes into wholesale, that's a whole different ballgame. It needs to be structured, it needs to be planned out, and your sales team need to be on board with it because they're your advocates. They're the ones that are moving it, and your distributors as well. So get feedback from the market, get feedback from the sales team. Ask your sales team about the scorecard. Does that feel good to you? Right? Do you think you can accomplish this stuff? Get feedback from them. Decide who will do the tracking. And then finally, know how to interpret the results, which I'm going to tell you how. This is a bigger layout. So I've got the sales rep on top. I've got a marketing department person or a marketing person on the bottom, if you want some examples for that. The Google Sheet that I'm going to share with y'all with my slide deck has more departments on there so that you can see examples of different people in different roles. I like to color code mine for a miss. I use yellow for like, we're almost there, like fix it before the end of the month. Sort of a stoplight system. Like red is like, no, that didn't happen. Green is awesome, we hit it or exceeded expectations. And then yellow would be like, hey, we need to fix this before the end of the time period, right? And I like to put the numbers in there. So like you could see on revenue goal, like that first month it was a miss, it was 67%, it's supposed to be 80%. You can do that, if you're savvy with spreadsheets, you can do that with conditional formatting and it'll just go in there automatically. But you can do it by hand as well. All right, utilizing the results. First of all, you've got to track this in real time. and you have to make a commitment to tracking it. You can't just like track it during January and February like a New Year's resolution and then just let it like trail off into the abyss. You actually have to make a commitment to it and see it all the way through, because now you're dealing with somebody's compensation package, right? Hold on, stand by. All right. So the other thing is this is actually you using data. That is a big buzzword in the industry right now, being data driven. We're going to be data driven as a brewery, right? Like it's all, like Bart talking about use the data, be strategic. Yes, that's totally in my wheelhouse, right? But I don't want you to collect data and stare at a spreadsheet and be like, awesome, numbers. Now what do I do with this? It's a negative number. What the hell do I do with that? Do I need to fix it? Is that like, is it good? Is it bad? Like, I've got a trailing skew, right? So what do I tell my sales team to do with that? Go out and sell more. Well, that's non-specific. That's super awesome. Like, know how to interpret that stuff. Where did that negative number come from? Did you lose accounts? Did you lose placements? Is that item not popular anymore? Is it not priced right? Have you done market surveys out and about? On maybe like the production side, are the DO levels too high? What's wrong with my canning machine, right? Do I have the right equipment? Does something need to be tweaked? Does somebody need to be retrained? Like, don't just look at the records of everything. I want you to be able to take a look at the records, and I want you to be able to use it, right? The other thing is meeting content. Who thinks you have exactly the right amount of meetings in your business? Not a single person. Yeah. Okay. For anybody who's going to be at CBC, I'm actually talking about this at CBC. It's called That Meeting Should Have Been an Email, if you want to come see me talk about that. I feel like I need a shirt to give to everybody to like send home as like a partying gift after sitting through that. We have too many meetings these days. Why? Because we have things like Zoom and FaceTime and Google Meet and all the things, right? And we need to be collaborative, right? We need to be strategic. So production is going to have to sit through 4 meetings with finance and sales and marketing and, all those people. Anyways, the thing is, I want to cut down on the number of meetings that we're having. And I also want you to get internal communication like shored up and consolidated, right? And succinct. And when you have something like a scorecard and you know how to interpret that data, and you can say, hey, Jeff, go fix something on the canning machine because the DO levels have been da 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 da, and we need to get it in place, right? Morgan, the email open rate has been like this. That's not going to be the case with her. But if that's happening, what can we do to change things up? Let's change the media. Let's put some more links in there. Let's use some more backlinks and keywords, stuff like that. You have succinct things that you can give to people in like a short bulleted list that cuts out a lot of the in-between and a lot of the wasted meeting time. The other thing is employee reviews. Who likes to do employee reviews? That blows. I get one guy that's like, I'm just going to put my hand up. I knock out employee reviews in 30 minutes. That's it. I do that for a lot of my clients because I'm their sales director, right? I'm like their fractional sales director. I don't like ridiculous employee reviews where you sit across at the table or you get on Zoom and you're like, things are good. How are things for you? How are things go? Awesome. Okay. These are, the scorecard makes it to where you can say, hey, in January, you lost a bunch of placements. So let's go try to find that to get them back. We're having a lot of success in restaurants. So I've got a target list for you, and I want you to knock those out in April. Right? It's very distinct on like, these are the things that happened. These are the things that are happening. This is how we can fix them. Boom, get out the door and start doing your job. All right? But you also, there needs to be some two-way communication. Please don't think I'm that harsh with people. I'm not. Performance improvement plans. So if you have to do this with somebody, it makes it very easy, right? These are our goals. this is where we want to be. You're not getting there. The same way that you would do that with a distribution agreement. You're not getting there. We agreed to these overall performance goals. You're not there yet. You have 90 days to fix it. And this is where I need you to be. It's pretty cut and dry. Not a lot of gray area in between. Advancement and bonuses, you can reward people based off of this system and based off of the metrics. That's all you get me for. Pretty much, that's it. But I would say if you want to, where the big arrow is, that actually connects to, I'm speaking twice, so please forgive me. I didn't make 2 folders of deliverables. I just put everything all in once. Morgan and I are speaking later this afternoon about social media marketing. There's deliverables in there, but you do have a sample scorecard if y'all want to rip that Google sheet and use it for your own. You can slice and dice it however you want to. This is how people can get a hold of me if you want to. I'm a one-woman show, by the way, so if you send anything to me, it's just going to come straight to me. But I feel very lucky to have been here with all of you, and thanks for letting me invade New York from the great white southwest, I guess you can say. I'm going to check my phone now to see if there's any questions, but if anybody is brave enough to raise your hand and you want to ask something right now, I don't see anything on there unless people have put stuff on there and it just hasn't refreshed. Yes?
Would you be able to speak more specifically to front of house scorecards, operating in a gratuity-based compensation space versus an hourly-rate compensation space, and the experience that you've seen with that?
I don't for front of the house scorecards, it's mostly based on like whatever their solid compensation is. I don't dip into any of the, I don't put anything gratuity based on the scorecard. It just has to do with what their role is in working in front of the house. My cider client that I have right now in Nashville, we have a new, theirs is a tasting room. We have a tasting room manager, and part of hers is liquor cost, like staying under a certain percentage each month for liquor cost. They also have food, so she has a food cost element on there. Merch loss, that's another one that we monitor for her, because she's responsible for making sure that like what comes in and goes on the floor goes out, and that it's all accounted for. Her folks that are just like bartenders, right? It's, did the opening checklist get done on every single one of their shifts? Did the closing checklist get done? Let's try to get to this revenue level with merchandise sales just for you. And you can do that with the point of sale system that you're using, that you can see like by server, of who that's assigned to. You do have to make sure you have a good system in place, like Clover or Arrived or Square or Toast or, whatever it might be. And those would be things that you would need to input in there to make sure that you're tracking. Another thing that we like to do with front of house, like service folks and not so much management, is did you, to-go beer sales, merchandise sales, collecting email addresses to give to the marketing people, things like that. Your front of house people will have a very small scorecard, if that makes sense, because they are doing other things besides that. But it's a nice way to keep them focused, like instead of just coming in for a shift and just like working and leaving. I would say the further up you go, the more elements, it'll get a little bit longer. Did that help? Hopefully that answered your question. Okay. Anyone else? I talked really fast. I blew through that way faster than I normally do. We'll go back to this one. And these are things that you are going to have to work to set these up in your own systems, if that makes sense. So Ecos, you could set this up as like a saved report. You could do the same thing in Beer 30. Is anyone using Brew Ninja by chance? That's a cool little system. I'm an Ecos partner, so I'm like, it's for smaller producers if you're not quite ready to scale up to like an Ecos or a Beer 30. Part part of me working with folks too, I have to know all these things so that I can suggest like what I think fits for their organization. Brew Ninja, they're Canadians, so you're gonna have to ask them to take it off of liters and hectoliters. But they can do barrelage and CEs. You just have to ask them to switch the measurement unit, but it's a nice little like entry level, low cost. I think it starts off at as little as like $100 a month. But for somebody that wants an ERP, inventory management system to get started with, it's a great little system. They'll be at CBC, by the way, if you have questions about that. I don't get anything from them, I just like them. I think they have a good product. Yeah?
For the marketing measurables, the goal is how did you, I know you mentioned it'll be different for everyone, but are those determined by sort of data? Like as good?
Yeah, so like in this case, the followers that we wanted to add, it was because we wanted to add basically times 12 of how we got to that. You know what I mean? So you would just reduce it down. So start with the big like end goal. It could be a percentage. It doesn't have to be numbers. It could be we want to increase our, and you could just say social media in general, like across all the channels that you're doing. You could say we want to increase the number of our social media followers by 25%, by 50% this year. And then you would just break it up into smaller increments that you can go over per month. Sometimes it works better if you can do comparative. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So sometimes I'll have elements in this that'll say, I want you to achieve 10% follower growth on your social media channels over the same month last year. Like instead of just having a number. And then you could do that for production and you could do it for sales and whatever it is. And it gives a little bit more like apples to apples comparison of like an actual growth point. But you have to figure out what that number would actually be in that small increment related to your overall big goal. So it's a lot easier to, I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot easier to do with like volume and like dollars and things like that. That's a lot easier to track. When you start getting into, I mean, the goal is to have numbers on everything, but honestly, I've worked with some brewery partners that they're like, I cannot wrap my head around this, Julie. This is like, I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall because my brain doesn't work like this. Can we just do something simple? And I've created like a scorecard for their whole business where it was just like, don't throw away so much beer this month. Yay! Like that's it. So, and I'm not teasing when it comes to that. Like if you need to start off that small, that's totally fine. You don't have to jump into the deep end of the pool right away. You could just say, I want our engagement score to go up monthly. I want our followers to go up monthly. I want my cost per click on my Facebook ads to go down on a quarterly basis. I want more tickets sold to our anniversary event this year. Just simple things like that. And then you can get into the SMART goals and the numbers later on. Go ahead.
I also manage a tap room, so I don't want to ask you too many tap room questions, but is there something that you suggest on doing, like, maybe more of like an overall, instead of like singling people out, doing more of like the whole tap room as
Sure.
like all in,
Like a team goal?
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. If you want to do that, I don't like really tying that to compensation. You know what I mean? Because then it feels like, oh, well, I have like dead weight over here and I don't want that person affecting what I'm making. Sorry that I'm like gesturing. Jeff's just dead weight. Get out of here. No, but like, and again, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, right? Of like, what can you do that's fun with your team? Like work towards a team goal of like something that's an experience. Please don't have a pizza party. For fuck's sake, please don't have a pizza. Nobody wants a pizza party. People want a pizza party about as much as they want another email newsletter. Like send something out more interesting, right? Do like go in Colorado. This is very Colorado of me to say. I'm sorry. This is so cliche. Go whitewater rafting together. Do a ropes course. you know, go to a ski resort together, go to a concert, like, you know, make sure it's safe. Ugh. That's a whole nother conversation, but, I would work, like, maybe there's a quarterly team goal that you're trying to get to and everybody can pitch in. I don't know, maybe you shut down the tap room on like a Sunday when it's unbearably slow and like you all just have like a family dinner together. We used to have family dinner at the restaurants that I ran, you know, and that's always a nice way to like have a beer, eat together, talk, figure out what's going on. Some of my clients, they'll go play golf. Some of them play pickleball together. It's a new thing. I don't know. But anyways, hopefully that helps a little bit. I would do, if you are going to do a team goal though, I would do it to like a team building activity instead of some type of monetary connection. That way you're not like messing with people's livelihood, pretty much.
One of the things we've done is if you have like a merchandise goal for selling merchandise and the team makes that goal, then they all get a piece of merchandise like on the house. And they love that. So that's a pretty good incentive for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes it might be.
Sometimes it might be small,
Yeah.
you know, like I don't know. There's so many, and this is another reason why I'm a big. You know what's crazy is that I've been on the business side of this industry for so long, and I do not want to do HR, but yet I find myself talking about like a lot of HR stuff because it is so incredibly tied to the financial part of your business and the success of your brand is that it's hard for me not to talk about that kind of stuff. Did I think my company is called Not Your Hobby Marketing. I thought I was just going to be consulting I have a degree in marketing. I was like, oh, I'm just going to help people with marketing. Now I'm too lazy to change my LLC, so I just keep the same name. But I do so much more than that, and a lot of it is like, how can we improve the infrastructure? How can we improve internal communication? And it could be something as small as like, you know, I'm a big basketball fan and I want to go to a March Madness game. And, you know, maybe I just have like one ticket and I go by myself, you know, and that's like a little prize. Like something, it might be a shift beer, be careful with that, but it might be a shift beer, it might be a shirt, it might be a meal, you know, it could be a gas card. That's really meaningful for a lot of people. Again, my husband's in the industry and I'm not, I told Jeff where he works, I'm not gonna say the name out loud here, but there's a lot of folks that he works with that live in a van in the parking lot. And to them, like a hot shower is a big deal. You know, being able to cook in a kitchen. So like, if you accomplish something and you want to give them a gas card or let them stay at your place for well, that probably violates like a whole bunch of HR stuff. I'm not an HR professional. Please don't, you can just erase that off the video log. But you know, just something small. Because when people feel seen, that makes a huge deal to them. That's why you hear so much about like inclusive companies being so incredibly important. And I speak a lot about that from the business side because inclusive and equitable companies are historically more profitable than those that aren't. And I'm not trying to put a price tag on humans at all, but we are in the business of business, right? We want to stay in business. You want to keep the doors open. And when you can take care of your folks, right? And this is a way, like this is an equitable version of management, right? It's an equitable and inclusive version of managing your team. You're going to have less turnover, so that's less cost for you. You're going to have people that are loyal. You're going to have people that are honest, and they're going to stick around for a long time, which is a good thing to have. I'll check this again. Anybody else have questions? No one asked the secret questions. I always expect to get like secret ones. Anyway.
Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here.